Good evening, it's Friday the 13th of June and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Official outreach. Prime Minister Modi personally visits Ahmedabad crash site and hospitalized victims in wake of the devastating incident, prompting nationwide grief. Regional shock. Israelis airstrike rock Tehran and tensions escalate across the Middle East, leaving several Iranians injured and raising global alarm. Civilian hero. Man risks his life to pull woman from fiery car wreck as onlookers and first responders unite in a daring rescue operation.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Aqil Qureshi.
Good evening once again. India is reeling after the world's worst aviation disaster in a decade. The Air India Boeing 787 crashed just after takeoff in Ahmedabad, killing nearly 290 people. Investigators search for answers and loved ones moan the loss. Indian Prime Minister Modi was the sole survivor of this crash. Take a look.
The Air India flight destined for London's Gatwick Airport crashed into a doctor's hostel near the Ahmedabad airport just minutes after liftoff. Flames engulfed the crash site and thick smoke poured into the sky as emergency responders battled to contain the inferno. Among the 242 passengers on board were 169 Indian nationals, 53 Britons, 7 Portuguese citizens and 1 Canadian. Only one person, identified as the sole survivor, was pulled alive from the wreckage, while several people on the ground also perished in the building that was hit. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the scene and met with the injured, expressing his condolences and directing authorities to provide full support for affected families. The crash has sent shockwaves through the global aviation industry, especially for Boeing, whose 7878 Dreamliner was involved. While the Dreamliner is considered one of the most advanced aircraft in service, the crash has reignited concerns over Boeing's safety practices, especially following its recent struggles with the 737 MAX.
Tensions in the Middle East are at boiling point after Israel launched a massive wave of strikes on Iran, targeting nuclear facilities and military sites. Explosions rocked Tehran and Natanz, with fears mounting over potential retaliation and regional escalation.
In a major escalation dubbed Operation Rising Lion, Israeli forces carried out dozens of precision airstrikes deep inside Iranian territory. Targets included ballistic missile factories, high-ranking military officials, and nuclear research sites. Iran confirmed intense explosions in Tehran and at the Natanz uranium enrichment facility, widely believed to be at the center of Iran's nuclear program. Several strikes also hit densely populated residential areas, leading to civilian casualties, including deaths of multiple children. Footage showed smoldering buildings and emergency crews navigating rubble-strewn streets in the capital. Among those reportedly killed were 2 of Iran's top nuclear scientists, Fareydun Abbasi Davani and Mohammad Mehdi Taranchi, along with Hossein Salami, the commander of the elite Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. These high-profile losses have sent shockwaves through Iran's leadership, which immediately convened a top-level emergency security meeting. Meanwhile, Israel declared a nationwide state of emergency, warning its citizens to brace for retaliatory missile and drone attacks. Officials stated the operation was aimed at preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons and hinted that further strikes could follow in the coming days. Iran's military response was immediate. According to Israeli military sources, over 100 UAVs were launched towards Israeli airspace early today. While many were intercepted, the scale of the launch marked one of the largest drone offensives to date. The fallout disrupted regional air traffic, with airlines forced to divert or cancel flights across Iran, Iraq, Israel and Jordan. Flight Radar 24 data showed a near-total shutdown of commercial aviation over affected zones.
China reaffirmed its unwavering commitment on Africa's development and the opening of the China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo. Foreign Ministers Wang Yi pledged a deeper cooperation support for modernization and expanded trade as thousands of delegates gathered for this 4-day summit in Changsha.
Speaking in Changsha, Foreign Minister Wang Yi emphasized China's long-standing friendship with Africa, calling it a sincere brotherhood. He highlighted Beijing's readiness to sign more economic partnership deals and increase imports on African goods, aligning with China's broader goal of promoting industrialization and digital growth across the continent. Wang also underscored China's commitment to sharing governance expertise and aligning development strategies with African nations. A key focus will be fast-tracking the 10 partnership actions for modernization, which include infrastructure development, agricultural transformation, and people-to-people exchanges. The strategy supports Africa's vision for inclusive, sustainable progress. Leaders from Uganda, Liberia, and Kenya were among high-level dignitaries attending the expo, which drew nearly 4,700 companies and more than 30,000 participants. Organizers revealed that preliminary agreements on projects exceeded $11 billion, highlighting the growing scale and ambition of China-Africa economic ties.
Tensions may be easing on the Korean peninsula. A day after South Korea halted loudspeaker broadcasts, North Korea appears to have done the same. The move marks a rare moment of restraint, potentially opening the door for renewed inter-Korean dialogue.
North Korea's first response to the new South Korean administration's move has been to mutually reduce tensions. Pyongyang appears to have paused its broadcasts of loud noises towards South Korea on Thursday, following South Korea's suspension of loudspeaker messages the day before. According to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the South Korean military has not detected any broadcasts since late last night, though it needs to see if the pause will continue.
There are no areas where we can currently hear the broadcast, though it stopped late last night, and there were certainly no broadcasts early this morning or at dawn. It is uncertain whether this will continue in the afternoon. We're keeping a close eye on the situation.
This follows the South Korean military's move to halt loudspeaker broadcasts against the North in border areas the day before, in accordance with President Lee's order.
President Lee Jae-myung recently made this decision as a proactive measure to ease tensions, given the absence of any significant provocations from North Korea. This action is aimed at elevating the military standoff between the two Koreas and opening the way for restoring mutual trust.
The halt came for the first time in a year since the former administration resumed the broadcast last June, for the first time in 6 years, in response to North Korea flying trash-filled balloons across the border. For now, the JC has said there are no changes to scheduled plans to conduct training in border areas. With the first step taken to allay inter-Korean tensions, eyes are on whether this could serve as a momentum for President Lee to push his presidential campaign pledge, reversing the full suspension of the September 19th inter-Korean military agreement. An expert says it won't be easy to do it quickly.
If things develop further, the restoration of inter-Korean communication and liaison channels could pave the way for dialogue. However, I believe there are still many obstacles to fully restoring the September 19 military agreement.
As restoring the agreement is something that cannot be done unilaterally or preemptively, the expert added it should be pushed forward in a planned manner.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. A US appeal court has temporarily allowed President Trump to retain control of the National Guard in Los Angeles, pausing a lower court ruling that deemed the deployment unlawful. The movement intensified tensions over immigration protests and presidential authority. Take a look.
A U.S. appeals court on Thursday allowed President Donald Trump to keep the National Guard in Los Angeles for now, after he deployed them there last weekend to quell protests in the city over immigration raids. The appeals court temporarily paused a lower court ruling that blocked Trump's mobilization. San Francisco-based U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer earlier on Thursday found that the president's deployment of the Guard was unlawful. Breyer had ordered the National Guard to return to the control of California Governor Gavin Newsom, who had brought the case. Trump has justified the troops by characterizing LA's protest as a rebellion, but Breyer said they fell far short of that legal standard. Between the rulings, Newsom said the National Guard would be redeployed to its previous tasks, including border security, preparing for wildfires, and countering drug smuggling. However, it was only a brief victory for Newsom, as the Trump administration immediately appealed Breyer's ruling, calling it, quote, an extraordinary intrusion on the president's constitutional authority as commander-in-chief. Breyer's order was paused within hours by a panel of 3 judges, 2 of which were appointed by Trump in his first term. It's all likely to prolong a standoff between protesters and police at a federal detention center in downtown Los Angeles where migrants have been held, and where National Guard troops throughout the week have formed human barricades to keep people out of the building. The decision does not mean that the court will ultimately side with Trump, but it does leave command of the Guard with the president for now. The panel said it would hold a hearing on Tuesday to consider the merits of Breyer's order.
Deadly storms have struck San Antonio, Texas, claiming 5 lives as severe weather sweeps across the southern U.S. Millions are now under flood alerts, with 2 people still missing.
Tonight, San Antonio, Texas is reeling. Authorities desperately searching for survivors after police say a series of slow-moving storms left at least 5 people dead. Overnight floodwaters overtaking the highway, rescuers moving in. Some areas getting over 6 inches of rain by dawn. Angel Richards says her husband Stevie was driving to work around 5 a.m. when he called her from the car. Richards telling us she's confident that's her car, but she did not know what had happened to her husband. The city's fire department says there were at least 65 water rescues.
The United Nations has voted in favor of a ceasefire in Gaza amid a total internet blackout that's crippling humanitarian efforts. With communication networks down and infrastructure devastated, aid agencies warn of the growing crisis for civilians caught in the conflict.
The ceasefire resolution comes after urgent warnings from UN officials about the catastrophic impact of ongoing fighting, with the last functioning internet cable reportedly destroyed by military action. The Gaza Strip has been plunged into near-total isolation, severely hampering coordination and humanitarian relief and emergency response efforts. Relief agencies say the blackout has made it nearly impossible to track or deliver aid, communicate with medical teams, or confirm the safety of displaced residents. Many hospitals are operating without stable communication lines, and aid convoys have been delayed or rerouted due to lack of real-time updates. The UN Security Council resolution, passed late yesterday, calls for an immediate cessation of hostilities and safe humanitarian corridors. International pressure has mounted on both sides to de-escalate the conflict, with growing concern that the communications collapse may mask further civilian casualties and violations of international law.
Dozens have been evacuated in Western Sydney after a powerful explosion ripped through an apartment block, leaving the structure teetering on the brink of collapse. Emergency crews are on site as authorities investigate the cause and assess ongoing risk to residents.
Inside a Lidcombe apartment block, or at least what's left of it, debris strewn across the stairwell. The brick wall obliterated, and in the car park, a pile of rubble. It was just after 6 this morning when a unit of the Clarence Street building exploded. Inside, a 40-year-old man. He was conscious but had severe burns and was rushed to Westmead Hospital. Most of the other residents were sleeping at the time and ran for their lives. 2 women couldn't unlock their front door and jumped from their balcony. 4 buildings evacuated, almost 50 people, 7 of them treated by paramedics, including 2 children. And a second man also taken to hospital with smoke inhalation. Gas, the likely cause of the blast, but how? Now under investigation. An evacuation centre opened at nearby Belmore as those who are now homeless look for a new roof over their heads.
Time for a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. In London, a man once homeless is now leading history-rich tours through one of the city's wealthiest districts. Trained by a social enterprise, he's helping reshape perceptions of homelessness using lived experiences to guide, educate and inspire. Take a look.
Stefan Gordon, who spent 3 years living in a homeless shelter following a family breakdown, is now a trained guide with Unseen Tours, a charity focused on reducing the stigma of homelessness. Drawing on his personal journey, Gordon leads walking tours in areas like Canary Wharf and West India Quay, blending local history with insights into homelessness and social inequality. His own experiences provide a unique perspective that challenges common stereotypes and brings fresh depth into the stories he tells. The area Gordon guides visitors through has a complex past. Once a bustling dockland receiving goods like sugar produced by enslaved labor in the Caribbean, it was marked by stark contrast between wealthy merchants and the poorly paid dock workers who lived in harsh conditions. Gordon finds parallels between the struggles faced by these workers centuries ago and the difficulties he endured while living in emergency lodging houses, underscoring the persistent challenges related to housing and poverty.
A dramatic rescue caught on camera. A passing driver jumped into action to save a woman trapped in a burning car. With help from first responders and a fire extinguisher handed by police, his bravery helped save her life.
Hero to the rescue. A guy who was passing in his car races to save a woman trapped inside her blazing vehicle.
Rollover motor vehicle accident, vehicle fully engulfed. Still occupied.
Much to his astonishment, the Samaritan is handed a fire extinguisher by a cop. All at once, he finds himself a member of the rescue team. He blasts the flames with the fire extinguisher.
Where you at?
First responders smash the car's sunroof to get the trapped driver. And the hero civilian is right there, pulling the woman from the blazing vehicle, which could blow up at any moment. They frantically tend to the stricken 68-year-old woman who suffered burns over 1/3 of her body.
You need medevac?
And with that, we come to the end of today's edition of World News Tonight. With the hopes of seeing you again, I'm Akwil Qureshi, and we'll leave you tonight with the visuals of the Rio Fashion Show, turning the Christ the Redeemer statue into a fashion runway. Also, don't forget you can send in your feedback through our email at feedback.ad24english@derana.lk or via WhatsApp on 076 805 7933. Well, till then, we do have Anuradha Vikramasinghe joining you next on Nightly Business Report. Thank you for watching. Good night.